Mr. Escobar, thank you for talking to Radio Free Europe here in Pristina at the end of your visit in Kosovo. Before traveling to Kosovo, you said that the focus of the visit will be on possible resolution regarding, as you said, uncoordinated decision to ban Serbian dinar. Last night, after meeting Kosovo Prime Minister, you sounded somewhat hopeful regarding that meeting. You said that you had a good, open discussion, that Prime Minister Kurti said he would consider some proposals that you put forward. Have you gotten any replies from Prime Minister?
We have, but let me tell you why this is important. The United States is very committed to making sure that Kosovo remains a multi-ethnic civic democracy. And for that to happen, all ethnic communities have to feel safe and live under conditions of security and dignity. What is happening right now with the central bank decision is there's a lot of your citizens who are feeling a lot of pain. People who aren't receiving modest salaries. We're talking about disabled, retired, students, the most vulnerable people. And this decision has affected them very deeply. Now, the government has said that there are many options for them, but the government didn't provide them an option. The government said they have their own responsibility to do it, and a lot of people are finding it very difficult. Some of the older people don't have the right documents. Some of the younger people, their documents are not being accepted. Some of the banks are saying that it takes on average about an hour to open an account. Not everyone has an account. The banks themselves, despite what your Ministry of Finance says, the banks themselves say that they need to open between 30 and 40,000 accounts, with each account taking an hour. That's 40,000 hours of staff time, considering that the average person works between 1,000 and 1,500 hours per year. Imagine how long it's going to take to open those accounts. So this action, which is uncoordinated and which has created disruption, is creating real hardship for the some of the citizens of Kosovo. Now, for people who don't get social benefits from Serbia, they're not noticing how deeply this is affecting some. For those who work in euros and those who are paid through other means, they don't recognize that there are people among you who are suffering. So it was good in that the Prime Minister recognized that there are people suffering. But that's not enough. We need a resolution. So I asked the Prime Minister to suspend the decision while we, together with the European Union, the United States, and the government of Kosovo, work on a longer-term solution that suits your needs. That is, electronic transfers of euros through the Kosovo system. But right now, we need to do something urgently. Unfortunately, I was not successful in convincing him of that.
This is the newest from the Prime Minister?
That is the newest.
From today?
Right. Now, I'm still hoping that as the chief negotiators meet in Brussels on Tuesday, that they will find an immediate solution to allow cash transfers in euros to these people.
What are the next steps, or what is the excuse that you got from the Prime Minister? Why didn't he accept?
Well, the Prime Minister said that it was the decision of an independent institution. He doesn't want to get involved. Or that this is an inconvenience for people that can be easily overcome, or that it can be substituted with payments from the Kosovo government. But none of those are going to happen quickly. That's why we're asking for a suspension of the implementation. Now, I recognize normally a central bank and a Ministry of Finance do their best not to create instability or unpredictability in the economy. This did exactly that. Now, there are some outside who believe that that this was done to punish Serbs. I don't believe that. But I do believe that because this Vetvendosi government doesn't have a long history of governance, that sometimes there are people who don't think through the consequences. And I think that's why I characterized it in Brussels as a little bit incompetent, because when we talk through the unintended consequences, everybody recognized that there are unintended consequences, but these could have been foreseen. and they would have been foreseen if it wouldn't have been uncoordinated. The Quint has a lot of experience in converting currencies, going from one currency to the euro, but it took a long time. We only had 5 weeks.
Why did Prime Minister decided to go ahead with this ban, knowing that this issue may have been resolved through the association?
Well, that's a question for him, but it's true. What we don't want to do is we don't want to undermine the potential for the association, which is still very important. And it's very important for Kosovo's future.
We'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
How do you feel as a U.S. official being rejected by Prime Minister?
Well, it's not the first time, I'll tell you. There is a lot of frustration with this Vetvendosi government, not just in Washington, but in Brussels and in Rome, Berlin, and Paris as well. As we get to the 25th anniversary of the NATO action, it's important that people understand that the strength of the relationship between the United States and Kosovo is between the people. We will always be a close friend of Kosovo. But that doesn't mean we're not going to have differences with individuals and with individual governments. And I think that's where we are right now, is we're entering a period of a lack of communication. And we, at least from the American side, are doing everything that we can to repair that relationship.
And this decision today, how is that going to affect the communication, the partnership, the relationship the U.S. has with Kosovo?
Well, you know, our relationships are based almost always on, not just on shared interests, but shared values. And one of those shared values is the commitment to human rights. So the fact that the most pro-Kosovo government in the world and the most pro-American government in the world, that is the United States and Kosovo, are having this difficulty. It's not because of our policies on Russia or Ukraine or China. It's because of the treatment of minorities. So that should be a wake-up call to the Prime Minister and his government about where this relationship is going.
Will you consider any measures against Kosovo because of this?
Well, no. I mean, you know, but the fact is that we're trying to help him take care of his own citizens. I mean, we're almost at a point where we are trying very hard to work with him. Now, the question is not that there would be measures, but there are definitely consequences. We're going into the second year, maybe even the third year, where there has been no high-level meetings between anyone in the government of Kosovo or anyone in the American administration. So that should also be an indicator to the people of where the relationship is.
Do you expect that on Tuesday, Kosovo will, however, rethink this? Before, Kosovo said that they will not take this issue to Brussels. Now, you told us last night that there is a dialogue on Tuesday on the chief negotiators level. First, based on your information, will dinar be part of the discussion?
It absolutely will be.
It will be.
And so, look, I am, based on my meetings yesterday, I certainly hope that they reconsider. Now, this is not a question, this is not a policy question. We want to do it before it becomes a humanitarian question. So there is a way forward. So we agree, electronic payments. We agree, euros. Now, and we agree, a long-term solution that provides you the transparency and the capacity to fight money laundering and other forms of illicit transfers. But it should be done properly, coordinated, and in a way that's compliant with European standards and compliant with the Brussels agreements.
Can this decision, or if Kosovo doesn't back up, can this also affect U.S.'s support to Kosovo security, such as obtaining javelins?
I don't think so. I'll tell you that our support for Kosovo's independence, sovereignty, territorial integrity, and security is firm. Now, there's a policy question that how we deal with this will be within the political sphere, but it won't affect our commitment to Kosovo.
One good thing that happened this week, at least Quint has welcomed it, is the decision on Zvečanima monastery. How will it be decisive on Kosovo's path to the membership to the Council of Europe?
Well, look, it's very positive, and it's very important. And it's not about not just about the monastery, although it is partially that, but it's about the commitment to the rule of law. Now, you have a constitutional court decision. In mature democratic societies, a constitutional court decision is final. And so it had to be implemented. It was a tough decision, but it had to be done. So Kosovo is now showing that it has the maturity to accept the results of a constitutional decision, no matter how unpopular it is. But it's the right thing to do because it's the legal thing to do. So it will have an effect. Now, there are two other conditions that the Council of Europe had mentioned and that some European countries are looking for. One is some action on expropriations that are taking place in the north. And the other is the association.
Will the United States lobby in the meantime for Kosovo for this membership?
Well, I think that we're still evaluating all of the options. We still need the association. That is really, really key. And when we talk about enlargement, I'll explain to you why the association is so important.
We can start talking about the association. I guess you did talk with Prime Minister last night about the association. There is a draft statute on the table.
Right.
Kosovo hasn't made any move to send it to the Constitutional Court. Have you gotten any assurances that Prime Minister Kurti will do it anytime soon?
None whatsoever. Now, let me tell you why this is important. Let me tell you what the association is. The association is really the ability of Serb majority municipalities to provide services in Serbian languages, services that they're already entitled to provide. That's it. No executive powers, no state within a state, nothing that would give them a veto over your constitutionality or your functionality, and nothing outside of the structure of the legal framework of Kosovo. So, in other words, it's providing assurances and a little bit of self-management to minorities that other minorities inside of Europe and inside of the United States already have. So it is nothing more than bringing Kosovo's relationship with its minorities to a European level. That's why it was in Ahtisaari, that's why it's in Brussels, and that's why it's in Ohrid. So we need to move on that quickly. Now the other thing is, and this is super important, until December, the only candidates for European Union enlargement were the countries of the Western Balkans. After December, now we have Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia. And while Ukraine is facing a life or death situation, they are banging on the door of Europe, and that door is going to open. And so that means that the focus of enlargement is not going to be the Balkans, it's going to be Ukraine. And they're hungry. They're going to close chapters, they're going to make reforms. And when the 27 countries of the European Union open their parliamentary debates, each one, every single one, they're not going to do it every time for countries of the Western Balkans as they become ready. There's going to be one group, and there are going to be those who are ready, and then there's going to be those who are going to wait a long time. Kosovo's not even a candidate. So as we try to move forward, we, as Ambassador Hovnier said, this lack of the association and the dinar issue means that the United States is finding it hard to lobby non-recognizers who are going to make the decision on Kosovo's candidacy for NATO and for the European Union. So as Kosovo ignores the European path, which is the dialogue, and ignores the European roads, that the roadmaps that they're giving them, which is the basic agreement, the annex, and now the statute of the association, the Europe is saying that Kosovo is not working with Europe. That's why you have European measures, that in addition to others. So we need to lift the measures. We need you to get to candidacy, and we need you to get into Partnership for Peace urgently before we miss this historic opportunity. Now, ignoring the dialogue is taking you further away from that path.
Where is Kosovo heading?
Well, I mean, I worry about that. This Vetvendosi government has fewer friends in Europe than it should. Now, you still have a lot of friends in Europe, but there's a lot of skepticism about where this country is heading. Now, I'll tell you where it will head if we don't work on integration. We are going to head to a period where you're going to see more people leaving the country. You're going to see less investment. So if we don't do something urgently, we're going to have a slow, or maybe not slow, demographic and economic decline of the country.
I would go back to the draft statute. We have the draft statute on the table. It has not been sent to the Constitutional Court. Parliament Speaker even said that there may be a possibility of coming up with a new draft statute from the government itself. having in mind that you haven't gotten any assurances that there is a new draft statute, or at least there are statements about the new draft statute going around, is Ohrid agreement failing?
No, it's not. It's unimplemented. But I think Ohrid opens up an enormous opportunity for Kosovo. Now, under Ohrid, 90% of the benefits go to Kosovo. 90%. I would say even more. So under Ohrid, Serbia is required to recognize Kosovo's sovereignty, their territorial integrity, their administrative control over the north. They recognize passports, national symbols, flags, ID cards, diplomas, license plates, just about everything else. And Serbia is required not to block Kosovo's European integration in any institution. In exchange, Kosovo should do the association, which is an existing legal obligation. So for the price of something they should have done, they get all of the benefits. And it gives us, the United States, a platform to pursue not just new recognitions in Europe, but around the world.
Is there room for new draft statute?
Well, there is, but we need to hurry. I mean, there always has been. And part of the reason that the European facilitator gave them a draft statute was because they haven't produced one. So we produced one for them. And so if they don't like it, they should do it. But there has to be a draft statute.
Do you have any information if the government is working on it?
I believe they are not.
Should Kosovo feel the urgency to implement the Ohrid agreement prior to the elections in the United States?
Well, look, I think they should have done it last year because we would have been much further. But I am confident that our policy toward Kosovo and the region is going to remain consistent after the election. I mean, there is no option but European integration and NATO engagement in this part of the world. There's no option. So anybody who studies the question will realize that ultimately Kosovo must be part of the European Union. The question is, are we going to do it in 5 to 7 years, or are we going to do it in 25 years?
You said last time in our interview, December 2022, that if this government doesn't implement the association, you may look for alternative partners. Are you still considering that?
Well, look, what I meant by that is the association is an obligation on the government of Kosovo, but also other institutions. And so perhaps there are people who recognize the importance of moving forward in European integration urgently that may be interested in helping us either do a public campaign or lobbying the parliament or working with parties and partners and institutions that might be interested in working with the United States and Europe to move it forward. I didn't say that we're going to work around the government, but we're going to see if we can find partners to work with us to convince the government that Kosovo doesn't have any time to waste.
But it looks like you don't have partners.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I think that there are institutions in Kosovo that are very clear-minded about the relationship with Europe and relationship with the United States. And I'm talking specifically about the president.
The president. You said at the press conference with the president that it's not that you're only asking Kosovo for tough decisions. What tough decisions are being asked from Serbia to be done at the moment?
Well, for one, to stop the derecognition campaign and to recognize that once we get the association, there will be new recognitions. Additionally, we're asking Serbia to make sure that all of the decisions that are made under Brussels are irreversible. That is, the questions of ID cards and customs documents and other things must be entered into legislation. So in other words, it must be put into the legal structure of Kosovo, of Serbia, not just done sort of ad hoc. So there's quite a bit that we're asking for from Serbia. But most importantly, there are other things not related to the dialogue that we're asking of Serbia. The most important is we want accountability for the attack on September 24th. Not just Radojcic, but everyone who is involved in that should be brought to justice.
How do you comment the fact that Radojcic is still free?
I think it's unacceptable. And we have said, both in public and in private, that he must be brought to justice, that he is an international fugitive under American sanctions, and there's no place for him as a free man.
Does the U.S. see any links behind this attack to Serbia as a state?
Well, we do think that there were some financial and some organizational links, but we're investigating that fully. But in terms of the crime that was committed, I think the investigation was done competently by the Kosovo police. We didn't need to do an investigation. We had intelligence, and the results of the investigation track very closely with what we understand. So we're not asking Serbia for an investigation on September 24th. We're asking for accountability.
If you confirm the results of these investigations that Serbia was behind it, will you take any measures against Serbia?
I can't comment on that right now.
How do you also comment that there is still no indictment against Radojcic, neither in Kosovo or in Serbia, who is also investigated?
Oh, well, I don't know about Kosovo, but the investigation is going on. It's going on competently. In Serbia, we have said that he must be arrested and must be charged with whatever crimes he can be charged with in Serbia. And I know there's an Interpol warrant out for him as well.
How long will you wait from Serbia to do so?
Let me comment on that later, because we are having many discussions with Serbia. But they know our position.
Would the U.S. pressure Serbia to extradite Radojcic to Kosovo in order to face justice in Kosovo?
Again, that's very early, but I can tell you what we are saying in public about Radojcic and the need for accountability, we're saying in private.
Radojcic not only there is free man, but he seems also to maintain close ties with Serbian officials, such as Serbian ambassador to United States, Marko Đurić. You've probably seen the picture that is being circulating in social media. What is your comment?
My comment is the same one. Radojcic is a person who orchestrated the attack on September 24th. He's an international fugitive. He's under American sanctions, and there's no room for him in the political space.
How do you comment the defense that Đurić made on Twitter or X after that?
Well, look, I'm not going to comment on that. I'm just going to comment on the fact that everyone knows our position, including people in the government of Serbia.
I will stick to Serbia for a little longer. Do you have any indications from your contacts with Serbia that Serbia may be reconsidering its decision on sanctions on Russia?
The U.S. believes that Serbia should join with the European Union and impose the same sanctions on Russia. We have said that repeatedly. Now, it's a sovereign decision, and Serbia has not given us any indication that they would, but I think that they should. Now, that also is something for the European Union to consider, because Serbia is required to have 100% convergence in their defense, in their foreign policy with the European Union as a candidate.
But Serbia is not introducing sanctions, is not always aligning its policies with the Western world, is receiving official visits from Russia, is sending observers to Russia for the elections, is not distancing itself from Dodik. Vučić isn't. Can you trust Vučić?
Well, in all our international relations, it's not really about trust. It's about verifiable international obligations. And so that's what we always say about the dialogue. So there are things that Serbia and Kosovo have to do, and it's not about trusting or liking the leaders. It's about implementation and verification. With regard to Serbia, I would caution that the picture is not as black and white on Serbia. If you remember, Serbia has voted against Russia in many international organizations. I don't think that it is a secret that Serbia has hosted a lot of Ukrainian and Russian refugees and has provided humanitarian assistance to Ukraine and is looking for additional ways that it can help the government of Ukraine. So it is not a black and white picture, and I think we should be careful about characterizing that way.
Speaking of elections in Serbia, I know that will be the topic we'll discuss after Kosovo. Do you think Serbia is sufficiently cooperating with OSCE?
Well, I think that the cooperation is starting now. I think that the Prime Minister has announced that she will form a working group to address the concerns of ODIHR, and I do hope that all sides, including the opposition, take that seriously.
Do you expect that Serbia implements the recommendation before the elections for Belgrade on June 2nd?
Well, it's our hope that they fix the problems that were identified by the ODIHR report as soon as possible for the next election, and that would include Belgrade.
All right, thank you. I would also move to Bosnia. In his media appearances, Milorad Dodik wishes for the victory of Donald Trump in the upcoming elections, announcing that he would not hesitate to declare independence in that case. These statements have upset the public in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Is there room for fear in that case?
Well, first of all, no. I mean, the international community is committed to the independence, territorial integrity, and multi-ethnic character of Bosnia and Herzegovina. We have a peacekeeping force inside of Bosnia and Herzegovina. We have a high representative with tremendous powers. And NATO has said repeatedly that they would not allow a security vacuum in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So while Dodik's threats are damaging, I don't think that an impoverished entity of 750,000 people that is increasingly in debt will have the capacity to either challenge NATO or to declare independence and be viable.
So Bosnia can have NATO's assurances?
They can.
Speaking of Montenegro, you did comment Montenegro on Tuesday shortly, but would the United States reconsider its relationship with Montenegro in case parties of former Democratic Front coalition join the government?
Look, I think it's too early to talk about what our relationship would be like with anti-Western, anti-NATO parties in the coalition. But it is a risk, and that it's one that we have raised with the Prime Minister and the President.
And what happens if they join the government?
It's too early to tell, honestly, because I'm not sure that I'm not sure. It's still very early. This Montenegrin government is very young, and even so, it's made enormous progress in their European path, and it's made enormous progress in creating the foundation for a prosperous and Western-leaning European Union member. So right now, the most important task with Montenegro is to support everything that the Prime Minister is doing.
I would also like your comment on the recent annual threat assessment of the intelligence community for Western Balkans, where it says that Western Balkans will face an increased risk of localized inter-ethnic violence during 2024. Is this based on something we've been seeing around, or is there something new that we don't know?
Well, I'll tell you, it would not be a surprise to anyone, and we're hearing that from analysts on the ground here. Your own think tanks, your own politicians, everybody knows that there are certain malign actors who are willing to create problems in 2024, thinking that the world is distracted either by elections or by the war in Ukraine. Now, that would be a mistake, but that doesn't mean that there won't be provocations, but we want to be prepared for them. I had a meeting with the commander of KFOR my first day to talk about this, and he's very focused on potential instability, and he's very prepared for them. So I think we're prepared for contingencies, but that doesn't mean we won't enter a difficult period.
You said that when you get back to DC, you'll be meeting Quint representatives. What will you tell them when it comes to Kosovo?
Quite honestly, they'll hear what they expected to hear, that we didn't make very much progress on either the association or the question of the central bank regulation. Now, I hope that on Tuesday we do have something positive to discuss. Now, we already have something positive to discuss, which was the decision on Zvečanima, which is one that the international community has been asking for many, many years. So it'll be a mixed discussion.
You said in December 2022 that Kosovo has firm U.S.'s assurances when it comes to security. Is it still valid?
Yes. And not only is that assurance valid, but I also said in my other interviews that they also have our support for Euro-Atlantic integration. Now, they do. Kosovo still has our full support to be a member of NATO, a member of the United Nations, and a member of the European Union. Now, the problem is, can the Vetvendosi government give the Quint something to work with?